Yeah, I did not.
No, I wasn't feeling it, no. All right, Ms. Garris, so we had so much to celebrate. We just did a very long See the Success where you saw your kids writing and how they went from the beginning of the school year to writing like smaller amounts, not as much evidence, to these beautiful, beautiful essays. What actions did you take that led to these beautiful pieces of writing? Because you did a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think like giving them the sort of like the access point of like, this is how you write a thesis, or this is what your thesis ought to look like. And then once they've like recycled the prompt, and like we did a lesson on that, like once they recycled the prompt and they know like, oh, I should be filling this in with like a by blanking blank, it's so much easier for them because they've like had lots of exposure to the structure, like in here and in social studies. And then like I feel like they came in being able to pick strong pieces of evidence, but like particularly with like the high group like coming in on like different types of analysis that you should be doing, and then just like the like drilling of like write faster. Yeah.
But what else did you do with their confidence? Because like Anaje was smiling, like Whitico was smiling. What else did you do to get them? Because a lot of this is a mindset. So like what action did you do to get them to feel confident in this?
I feel like praising, like identifying the kids who like need that and like praising them a lot, positively narrating them a lot. And I found with those kids and like with me, when they're like, I can't do this, or like, I'm not gonna do this, or I'm gonna put my head down and sleep, it's like, just the attitude, like, come on, like, you can do this, you've done harder stuff before, like, stop playing, you know? Yeah. I feel like that's like the most authentic way for me to do that.
Yeah, and like your positive narration, like, has been that 90-10 ratio we've been talking about, like that has gotten kids to believe in themselves and to believe that they can do that. And the fact that you're like creating kids into writers and speaking that into existence is huge. So lots to celebrate there, but just know that all of that comes back to you and like the effort and like the narration that you're putting into it, which is beautiful. Today we're going to dive into a new standard, RI7.9, and we're going to learn on this together and get better together on this standard. So if you can just take like 1 minute to break down the standard, what we need to know and be able to do, and then I'm going to start charting it up here. But I'll give you a minute to just kind of go through it and read it first.
I showed her your email.
You did. Alright, what do you think? You call them out and I'm going to start charting them.
Okay, so for no, like they need to like have some access point for the topic. I think like one of the hardest things is they have to know how to, and I think like I have this as one bullet point, but I feel like it's actually multiple, how to construct or like set up this comparison, both like in their head and more of like a no thing, like just like how do you structure this in an essay?
Would you want to put that here or here?
I feel like the part about like, you just need to know how to do it in an essay, I feel like.
Do what? What do you mean?
How to like set up this comparison, like how to even approach
know how to approach
like
paired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I feel like a lot of the part questions, like when I first read them, I was like, ooh, like me as like an adult English major, I don't know how I would even approach this question. And I think like, I feel like I've done a lot of work like giving kids like that access point so that we can then like work backwards and they can actually internalize what the question is actually asking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I split into like know that texts are paired by topic.
Yeah.
And then know the general,
I feel like it's like a structure of a thesis for this type of, for the standard or type of prompt.
like know the general approach
Yeah,
of how to like enter it.
exactly. Like I think a lot of that is the like by blanking blank strategy.
What else, hold on to that by blinking blank strategy. What else on what they would need to know, like specifically in the second part of the standard?
What they need to know. You mean like in the by part of the standard? Like no, like what's the evidence in here? Like what's the author's interpretation of the facts?
Or even what, they need to know what interpretation means.
Right.
Like that two authors can be talking about.
Yeah, like bias.
Electricity, it is kind of like bias here. But
where's the author coming
interpretation.
I feel like I forget that so often.
What's that?
I feel like I forget that level of like, do you know what it means for an author to interpret something differently?
Interpretation of facts. Is there anything else in the second part of the standard? This is a big, meaty standard.
It is. Not that I can see. Did you find something else?
I just think that like what it means to emphasize different parts. Like how kids would need to know when someone was emphasizing something.
Like if it's being repeated multiple times, if you spend a lot of time analyzing it.
Yeah. So I would even just add room, but like what it means to
emphasize something.
Yeah. Because a kid might not know that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be able to access
the
rest of it. What about like be able to do? And this is going to be a bigger scaffold than most standards.
Yeah. Like just up front, like understand the text so that they can then like break down how the author is emphasizing something or presenting it in a different light. They need to be able to identify like similarities and differences in like how the authors present the topic or theme. And I feel like this is part of where like I come to that question of like, are my kids like actually internalizing what this question is actually asking, or are they like using the scaffolds that I've given them to just answer the question? Like,
and it's
am
just
I doing
plugging and chugging?
Yeah, am I just doing it in a test prep way, or do they actually understand the standard?
Deeply what it means, from overall gist to similarities and differences in presentation of topic, what would you, what do you think would go in the middle?
Identify like the evidence that someone uses.
Even before that, like kind of with here.
To access the topic.
Yeah, like what is the overall gist, and then like thinking about today's text. If they like stopped and thought like
identifying the central idea.
For even just like first the topic.
The type of topic.
And then the central idea. I mean, with electricity it was easier. With the one today, if kids had stopped, like thought like what is the general topic in both,
they would have gotten it. They would have gotten a long way towards that answer.
So the similar topic. And then the only other one I would add in between is the part of the standards where it's like identify how author 1 and author 2 are like presenting their key information.
Right.
It's like how do they present the key information before you're comparing and contrasting it.
Yeah. So like looking at each one individually before comparing and contrasting. Yeah, I feel like some by blanking blanks would be helpful here too.
Yeah,
maybe I'll do.
For our reteach.
I was gonna say maybe I'll do another anchor chart this afternoon.
Oh, that's sloppy. Okay, so just to summarize, we've got like finding the overall gist, like understanding the text, what they're like saying for an entry point, identifying that similar topic.
So it's like the overall gist of like each text, and then you are like looking at them together, and then for 3 it's like looking at them separately again, and then 4 looking at them together again.
Yeah, it's like you could make it sticky, zoom in, zoom out, zoom out, like zoom in, zoom out,
zoom in.
Yeah. So if we want to make it sticky, we could do it that way. But really, like down here, similarities and differences in presentation of the topic is almost the work of the standard, but there's almost one more.
Sorry, can you move your paper?
And it kind of goes in order here.
Yeah, so it's like, it's not just like how they're presenting the topic, but it's like, that's like a zoom in, and then they need to zoom in like even further, because it's like, how are they emphasizing evidence? How are they like put like what in their language make like what in their language toolbox are they using so that they're able to emphasize something or advance a different interpretation.
Yeah.
So it's that like by blanking blank part of the standard.
Exactly, that's exactly it. So if we're looking at this standard, and just so you know, in this lesson didn't get here.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is only day 2 of this lesson.
We're at like
maybe here.
Yeah.
We're at here. And like the reason I just had them write 2 body paragraphs singularly was because like we have to be able to understand like they're paired and they're doing things
And I feel like
differently.
they're like doing pretty well with 3,
Yeah.
like from what I've seen.
Yeah. So just keep in mind that like this lesson it wasn't designed to get here yet,
Yeah.
but next Wednesday they like in further lessons they will be getting here.
Cool.
Just so you like have
That's
that
like
picture.
really where we put ourselves like in a craft standard, right? Is like at 5.
At 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at like the emphasizing evidence or advancing.
And I feel like that's really where like they actually need to understand like the author is advancing the purpose by like what is the author choosing to do.
Tell you or not tell you or emphasize or not. And it's so cool because when they're reading something on a similar topic, you'll be able to like trace, it's really like tracing how and where they're doing this. And so just know like kids will get here, but when we're looking at this today, we're essentially looking at how they're mastering up until this point, and then if they are mastering this, how can we scaffold up to the rest of the standard. Awesome, so we're gonna keep this in a second when we start looking at the gaps in work to figure out like where it is here that they need help. Yeah, cool. So if you flip the page, I put it's on the same page, the exemplar. And if you can just quickly even like make a code for the be able to do, and look at like how does the exemplar align to the standard. We'll take 30 seconds for this. Time, yeah.
I feel like this is the piece kids are missing. I feel like actually a reminder of like his like 3-point thesis would be helpful. Maybe I'll show Penn State that this afternoon.
Okay, what did you, like how did this exemplar align to the standard, and like in what ways?
Yeah, I mean I feel like the context and like the use of quotation shows me that this exemplar like understands like what is happening in the text at a basic level. And then these sort of like by blanking blank sentences like uses vivid descriptions of being beaten to convey blah 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 blah. Like this is the purpose of the text, and then this is like this is the craft piece here. The author, the how exactly. And like the exemplar does it multiple times and like explains each quotation in such a way that it links it back to this. And then this is sort of like the same pattern. I feel like where my kids were not getting it is like that I think that they don't actually understand what the question is asking because they left out the part of like in order to show that
The purpose.
I actually feel like even this like
I would change it now probably to
really?
align it more to this, but like this is okay.
but I would
The
say
fact
like
that it's different.
even if I give like what does the author do? Like the author a lot of my kids are able to say like uses descriptions, like shows emotion, but it's like one step further than that actually. It's like why did they
got
do
it
that?
though? We'll see in a second. Like some of them got there for sure. If you flip again, I just took pieces of the exemplar and showed how it aligned to each part of the standard, just so you can see. And you hit most of them on the head, like identifying the similar topic. That would have been in an introduction, but we only asked for 2 paragraphs. And you picked out the same information, but you can just see like when they're emphasizing something,
like
and then it kind of stops. We're kind of stopped here.
Yeah.
And that's the same line we drew here.
But that's also because like we're asking them to write like 1 paragraph, a 2nd paragraph. paragraph that's separate.
Yeah, just not assessed yet in this lesson.
Okay.
And so keeping that exemplar in line and how it aligns to the standard, let's go ahead and look at the exemplar piece of work. And first of all, major congrats at Raj as the exemplar. It's very exciting. He was in Read 180 last year. And like, you've talked about him all year. So this is huge. This is a big celebration too. But like, what is it that Raj is able to do to show mastery of the standard, and then where is his gap?
Yeah, so I feel like his first sentence shows that he's like already comparing them. And he was like, can I do it this way? And then have one paragraph about each. And I was like, absolutely, you can, And then I think like by creating characters that stand up against their masters, like I feel like he's taking it a step further than a lot of kids who would just say like by creating characters that, or like by showing characters' thoughts or whatever, like this is taking it like a step further.
And what part of the standard is that showing mastery of?
3.
Why?
Because he's looking at, here he's talking about both. Does that make it 4?
That's why I picked him as the exemplar, because he's going a little bit above what we passed on this day. But he's definitely showing mastery of 3, like how each text, and it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's very authentic, but he's showing definitely mastery of 3. What else is he able to do?
Pulling like a good piece of evidence that like very much fits to exactly what he says, which is great. And then like pulling out the important piece here, like pulling out the important piece from the evidence. And then for the second paragraph, like repeating sort of that same like message, again, like a good piece of evidence, and analyzing like the bit of it that matters.
Yeah. And the beauty of this is that like I would argue, even got to here. Because he understands they're paired together for a reason, and that they're doing something very similar.
Yeah.
And like he just needs a little push to get him like this one used more like descriptive diction on like
what happened.
Yeah,
this
like
one
blood,
uses dialogue.
This one uses her like thoughts throughout. So he's like really pushing the border here. Is there anything in the exemplar or in Raj's exemplar that was missing from the teacher exemplar?
I think like this piece where he's talking about both.
Yeah. And it's great, and like the point that wasn't necessarily in the lesson, but that's showing like he's going above the work of the lesson for that time.
Yeah, I think it's because like they're starting to feel like, oh, this is really similar to like, I feel like they feel most comfortable with LAT, and like I think they're starting to get the sense that this is really similar. And so like a lot of times their theses for like an LAT, it's like you're talking about both texts, like they do it in the same way, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's interesting how LAT like does sort of draw on 7.9 too.
Yeah,
like, just by
definitely
hearing
does.
them.
Yeah, definitely does. And then okay, what about so we'll look at Amari's, and then from here on it's really looking at the medium group. And so you can let's just take 2 minutes or 3 minutes to go through from Amari all the way through the medium group. Just think about like what are they showing? What are they showing mastery of? And what would be their biggest gap in this group? And if you need to keep flipping back to the standard, like if you had to draw a line or a number, where would it be?
Yeah, ooh. Like already comparing. Douglas approaches the topic of his life in a different way. So this is all medium. What is this saying? Kazania.
Oh, she had a whole.
I know. So long.
But I just wanted to isolate this part to like narrow our focus.
This is like, I can't believe this is one sentence. Period. New sentence. I know it's just a convention thing, but God, that makes me crazy. Yeah, she's missing like why. Like, why does the author do this? This is just a